Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Black Intellectualism Movement tonight. We are very, very excited to have you tuning in to talk with us about tonight's very exciting topic. Even more so, we're excited because this is actually our first discussion of the 2022 year. And I thought to myself, what better way to start it off than by having, I get to be informed at this point, my best friend as our guest to talk with us about mental health awareness, making our vision plain, balancing family, and just how to make this year as successful as possible amid all the things that are going on right now. So
Mhm.
I'm very, very thankful that she could carve out time in her busy schedule to chat with us. And every single time I ask her, whether it's been coming out here to participate in workshops that I've jumped off, or doing live discussions here, Alexis is always available to share uh, knowledge and wisdom, and it just shows a reflection of her true commitment to helping people reach their highest level of success and live a fulfilling life, and that she's a really great friend.
Yeah, that's number one.
Um, so very thankful that we get to chart this journey of life together and share so many life lessons. And I hope that tonight you all will gather some things that will help you as you move forward through 2022. Many of you guys have expressed that you have big dreams ahead. I've been seeing my timeline, watching people start businesses, make commitments to changes, and talk about the goals that you have going forward. So I'm very, very excited to see you doing those things. But what we want to talk about is how do we stay motivated? How do we stay engaged? And how do we balance all the different things of life? Before we get started, I want to introduce Alexis again for those of you who may not remember her qualifications, because if you are a person that's in need of any type of support, she is more than likely the woman that you want to try to reach out to and get in with. She is an LCSW and mental health therapist. She is the owner of Therapeutic Wellness Solutions. She holds the supervisory level licensure and several other certifications as well. She's very well studied. Every time I talk to Alexa, she's always reading a new book, right? So she's always trying to stay on top of the different trends and become more open minded about how she can best service her clients. She is also on the executive committee of the Louisiana Rehabilitation Council. And so a lot of our people as well who have challenges with your physical needs. She is excellent in that realm because not only can she relate to you professionally, she can also relate to you personally. And she is an advocate for ensuring that we meet the needs of all people. And because it is almost Founders Day, she is an AKA of Grambling State University. So I'm sure some of your sorors will
Indeed.
be excited to hear that. Lastly but not least, she is a wife to Mr. Rashid
Mhm.
Young, and she is the mom of three and bonus mom of one. So
Yes.
friend has a very, very busy life. Um,
Yes.
but one of the things that we have always believed in and have tried to remain committed to is understanding what our dreams and our calling is and making sure that we include our dreams, calls, and passions in our day to day life.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do,
You're
but that's
right.
why we're having this conversation today because we believe in seeing other people do that as well. So,
Mhm.
what did you have anything you want to say before we kick off with the questions?
No, no, I think everything was well said as always. It's a pleasure to be invited to be a part of the Black intellectualism movement. I'm just honored to be here as a guest. I mean, what can I say? Just glad to be here. Thank you.
I think I'm most excited, friend, because we are approaching the 1 year anniversary of the Black intellectualism movement as well. And
Yeah.
it was just last year whenever I first told you that I was thinking about doing what I thought was just going to be a discussion series initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's initially what I talked to you about was doing this discussion series, and I have some important things that I want to talk about, and I think this will be a
Hmm.
good thing to do. And the support from everybody was so immense and so
Yeah.
encouraging. And um, I really thought, okay, well, maybe this is something more than what I initially thought it was. And here we are nearly a year later, still
Hmm.
having these conversations, expanding these conversations, reaching new levels. And we'll talk about that later on, but just been really blessed to engage in more meaningful conversations.
Yeah,
So I'm very,
absolutely.
very excited about that. And to kick off this year with you to talk about how we can continue to move forward and how people can move forward in their day to day life.
Hmm.
So let's go ahead and dive into the first question. And if you
Okay.
all have any questions or comments, you already know the routine. Please drop them in the comments and we will try to get them all answered and talk with you about anything that you want to share. Okay.
Hmm.
So, first question is, the pandemic has been very hard on humanity. So we know that we have seen what the new one is, what Omar, the Omarion
Um,
strain they call the new one,
Omicron.
but it's Omicron. But
Omicron, and I actually just
really,
heard that there is a Delta Omicron variant that is out
yeah,
there.
yeah. And then the flu
Yeah.
Rona has come.
Hmm.
So we've just heard, it's like every week there's something new that comes out.
Right.
A lot of people have lost family members. A lot of people are sick.
Yeah.
I think this time around we've actually seen people that we know, even more closely who have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
sick.
For sure.
And so that alone has been very challenging for a lot of people. And so my question is, what advice would you give for those who are trying to cope as we enter yet another year of pandemic life? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people thought this would be over and it hasn't been. So what
Right.
would you say?
So, I would say to that to for individuals who are feeling the brunt of going into yet another year of, you know, the pandemic, right? This never ending story of having to mask and social distance and not be around family members if you are adhering to CDC guidelines, that just taking it day by day, which seems so minimal, right? Taking it day by day, knowing that all of us are doing the best that we can with a situation that no one ever lived through. And so something that I talk with clients about is that we have a sense of normalcy that we tend to ride on, like we depend on it, right? And so the pandemic just blew that out of the water. And so it really became important for us to do the best that we can with what we have, right?
That's a
So
good one.
being,
That's a good one.
exercising gratitude with the people that are around us, really being mindful of we have been able to get through, right? The first months of the pandemic, we weren't able to go anywhere. We weren't able to, meet anybody, and now we are at least able to venture out to the grocery store without having to have, capacity limits, right? And so really being able to assess where we've come as far as the pandemic and know that we are doing the best that we can. A lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for that. Um, I saw a documentary probably last year, it was 2021, and it was an own documentary. I can't think of the name of it, but basically it was depicting the lives of couples and families early on in the pandemic, early on in 2020. And there was a couple where I think the mom got COVID. The dad had COVID first, and the mom, excuse me, got COVID second. And when she was sick, and dad was trying to take care of not only her but the kids, he was feeling overwhelmed. And she know that he fed the kids like some hot dogs or something like that for breakfast, and she was like going off. And and he was like, "Listen, we're sick. We have this is what we have. The kids got fed, so we're doing the best that we
This
can."
is yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That kind of depicts how things go sometimes. And we're like, well, it's not going to be okay because everything has gone to hell in a handbasket. Excuse my language, but it is okay for us to give ourselves credit for doing the best that we can with situations that are completely unpredictable. And just knowing that, okay, maybe it is not the sense of normalcy that I knew pre-pandemic, but what kinds of norms have we created within these, 2 years of
Yeah.
living through a pandemic, and what things have gotten us through that? Because just reflecting on that can help us to see, oh wow, I actually have been doing a really great job with a situation that's pretty tough.
I remember at the end of the year,
Excuse me.
around Christmas, everybody was saying, like I kept seeing everywhere, people were saying, this doesn't feel like Christmas. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
normal. It doesn't feel this. It doesn't feel that. And I remember thinking to myself, um, for me, and you can relate to this. I've been through a lot of changes, very
Hmm.
abrupt changes over the past 3 years. Even prior to the pandemic, I had already experienced a very big change in life. And I did struggle to adapt to all of them, especially with the I can do everything type of woman mindset,
Yeah.
which I have. And I think that especially a lot of women of color have as well.
Hmm.
But over those years, I have finally gotten to the point where when Christmas came around, I was like, I just thank God that I'm here to see another Christmas
Hmm.
this year.
There it
It
is.
doesn't matter how things work, it doesn't matter whether or
Mhm,
not it's in order this time. I'm just thankful that I'm here because
mhm.
there are a lot of people who have not made it to this point. There are a lot of people who may not make it to the next point.
Right.
So this year, I'm just gonna focus on being thankful to be here this moment. And
Mhm.
and and it's honestly easier said than done when you
Yeah.
feel that the mountain you're climbing is really high and you feel like
Mhm.
you're in a really low place. It can be easier said than done. But when I realized that I had made, for me, I had made it through 364 days and I was sitting on day 365, I'm like, you've survived all of that. So
Mhm.
what else do you need to think about right now
Right.
other than being thankful?
Yeah. 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 That's the big takeaway, personally. And I think for everyone, I think that we're grieving for the pre-pandemic conditions that we don't have, right now. To a certain extent. We do have a sense of normalcy, but things are still not the same. I mean, there are stores that we won't see again. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they just
Mm-hmm.
gone. So I think it's also important to know that whenever there is such a sudden loss or unexpected loss like that, that we have to allow ourselves time to grieve. And I think we've talked about that. I know we've talked about that personally and maybe on a previous conversation, but it's important to be able to allow ourselves to mourn the loss of normal circumstances, if you will. So we think about a death when we lose a person that's close to us, but we also experience grief when we lose relationships, when we lose jobs, when we of course lose a loved one, when the idea of something is changed unexpectedly. All of that, like, really unearths some things that we hadn't expected, like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, this is not the way that we usually do things. There
Right.
was the sense of routine that we had pre-pandemic was what made us feel safe, which is so
Yes.
important for humans.
Yes. Yes.
In order for us to be able to thrive, not just survive, we need to feel safe. And so that's why we feel like so unsteady. That's why we have continued to feel like we're so unsteady during this pandemic. But um, thinking about, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, just a little bit before you added, Jamie, what you just added, what are the things that you still have that can help you to feel safe? You know, what are those things? Is it the family that you have with you? Is it a tradition that you can carry forward, even if there are loved ones that have gone on, due to COVID? What kinds of things can you continue to put in place that might be a bittersweet comfort, but still might bring some comfort to you? What types of new routines have you been able to foster? Those types of
Absolutely.
things, whether we know it or not, really add to our feeling of safety and hopefully the ability to thrive and not just to survive.
It's so interesting when you talked about what new things have we been able to adopt to that help us get a sense of comfort for
Right.
our new normalcy.
Hmm.
So what I was sitting here thinking about was, so all of these years I've always admired, and this might seem like small, but to me, it's those small things that keep adding up during the
Hmm.
pandemic that have made a lot of people feel very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so for this was just an example, I think, of like those moments. So when you talked about stores closing down and everything, so we have a Paul Michael, and
Oh.
and for years I have admired Paul Michael, and I had that conversation with you, and then so my
Hmm.
mission this year was like, okay, I'm gonna go, and I know what things I want to finally buy from Paul Michael because
Hmm.
I've admired this store a long time, but I've always said, those things are really expensive, and you need to cut corners here, cut corners there. And this year I had like looked up the things I wanted, made a list of things I had in mind, and I was like, by the middle of this year, I'll be doing this, and that'll be my plan.
Right.
About a month after I laid out the plan, I passed by Paul Michael, which is next to a little donut shop me and Lee Three go to on Fridays. And there's a big sign that says Paul Michael is closing.
Sayonara. Mm.
And as much as it seemed almost like borderline superficial, it was a really big moment for me to
Hmm.
realize how seriously the impact was on our economy.
Yeah.
And I was really sad. And I
Yeah.
didn't go to that donut shop for about 3 weeks because every
Yeah.
time I drove by, I just felt so disappointed. I'm
Yeah.
like, this store has been here for
Forever.
years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I make up my blueprint and
Yeah.
they're closing it down. But it
Yeah.
really, I was kind of disappointed in myself because I'm like, why am I so upset about this? But I think it was just also what you talked about, that startling reality
Yeah.
that there are a lot of things that you would not expect to change that are changing, a lot of things
Hmm.
that you cannot control, and things that seem small but really have a big meaning to us
Yeah.
about exactly where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when I remember when I went in the kitchen and I started taking out my Christmas decorations, and last year I had the chance to make those little swags and things like that, and
Hmm.
I put those out, and that was one of the moments when you talk about that little bit of comfort. I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? But I've discovered a new talent, and I can actually make
Right.
some of this
There it
stuff on my
is.
own.
There it is.
So I just thought about how relatable, like I could completely feel what you were saying when you were sharing those tips a moment ago,
Hmm.
because I definitely could relate to how I was, how it seemed like a store closing, like since we're in a pandemic, but it really just to me awakened some other things about
Yeah.
coping with the effects of where we are at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you another question then. So what is your advice for people who are saying that they are struggling to find a new normalcy because if they're in a helping profession, my work profession has changed, and now the places where I found peace are no longer peaceful. So, what would you say for them? Home life is the kids have to be home. A lot of activities are canceled. Maybe the gym where you used to go work out isn't open, or they have a limit. So, what would you say to people that feel like they cannot find that thing of peace? And
Yeah.
what are some things that you have done to adjust to the changes?
Okay. So yeah. So thank you, Jamie. So I'm thinking now. I hear this a whole lot because the shift has forced people to be so together. It's too much togetherness, and I think there has been some alleviation for some folks because children have gone back to school. Some people have, gone back to work, but
Yeah.
there's still, like the fear of contracting COVID and not wanting to have your children to go to extracurricular activities. So they're at home, the whole
Mhm.
weekend. After school activities are out for some people. You're not going to the gym because you don't want to have any sort of exposure to COVID, that you wouldn't have had. And so when we're thinking about how we can get that time back for ourselves, it does require us to become very creative,
Yes.
very
Yes.
creative. And so, whew, I talk to people about taking time early in the morning, ooh, when it's very quiet, and the house is still, and hopefully nobody is up, but maybe you and the dog if you have a pet, or to do things right before. So really fostering, I talk a whole lot about routines because they're so
Mhm.
important. So fostering a morning time routine or a bedtime routine, or both, so that even though you might not have a whole lot of time within the rest of your day to take like an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours away, maybe you don't
Yes.
have that luxury, taking 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in the morning before maybe your kids get up and the day gets going can be that time, that sacred time for you, so that you can say, I might not have that time for myself, for the rest of the day, but I had it this morning. Or if you're not a morning person, being able to do that same thing with your bedtime routine. After the kids have gone to bed, I've done cooked dinner, I've, iron clothes, whatever it is that you do, for your family. I'm going to dedicate this amount of time to myself, whether it is spiritual time, reading the Bible, that's in the morning, or at night. I'm going to have a hot shower. I'm going to, spend time with my partner or spouse, whatever it is you're planning to do, being very succinct about what it is.
Mhm.
So I know we're going to talk about planning and goal setting in a little bit, but that becomes a part of your goal, because you are identifying what you're most likely, to engage in, and you're setting an interval of time. So what would you most likely be able to commit to? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? And how can you remain consistent with that? And I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but for me, it has been the morning time. So probably 2018, I was like, my husband is in law school, it's me and the kids. And I know I'm snapping, I'm snippy, I'm snappy. And it doesn't mean that they have necessarily done anything. It really means that I have not had time to sow into myself. And like you said, being in a helping profession, you're always, and a mother, you're always sowing into other people. And
Mhm. Mhm.
we cannot physically pour from an empty cup. there, there
Yeah.
there's nothing that will come out of that. And so I sat down and was like, okay, I am going to have to do something different for myself.
Mhm.
And I was like, but where is this going to happen? When is this self-care going to happen? This time for me, when is it going to happen? And so it came to me, it was like, you're going to have to get up earlier. And I was like, I feel like I'm already getting up real early. I was really hesitant about that. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't feeling it at first. I was like, I don't really want to get up earlier. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it anyway. I'm going to try to get up, and I'm going to meditate and have stillness, meditation and prayer before my kids get up. And I did it like one time. It wasn't so early because that was like around the time whenever I switched jobs. So I actually took them to school and came back and did it. But I felt so good after I took that time. I mean, I was just like on fire. I felt like I had so much more energy, so much more creativity, zest. I mean, everything. It was just like I was literally, I felt like I was just full of life again instead of drained. So that one time I did it, I was like, okay, I'm going to make the commitment to start to wake up 30 minutes earlier than my kids
Right. Mhm.
and spend
And
time doing meditation. And the meditation started just meditation, and then it expanded into yoga as well.
I see. I don't think that people realize sometimes that like people have the mindset that, oh, it has to be an hour early, or
Right.
it's not required to be this
Mm-mm,
dramatic amount of time. If you have that
mm-mm.
amount of time, so be it. But for people who are saying, oh, it's really a lot for me to get up an hour extra, just giving yourself that 20 to 30 minutes in the morning to reset alone makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I know that with me, I don't wake my son up when I first get up in the morning.
Hmm.
Pandemic, he's
Yeah.
been homeschooled. I don't
Mhm.
wake him up when I get up. I get up and
Right.
fix his breakfast alone. I turn
Mhm.
on whatever music or
Right.
Bishop T.D. Jakes. in the morning so I can listen to that by myself to get myself in a better place. Because if not, I found that I was not very patient when I had to work with him throughout the day.
Mm-mm.
So, and then and getting proper rest, and we'll talk about that later. Because believe it or not, whether we want to admit this or not, the more structure that we provide, the better we can get the proper rest that we need.
Yeah.
And rest matters, but when you talk about just having even just a few minutes earlier to get yourself together and allow yourself some time to just breathe and think, it
Mm-hmm.
can make a significant difference in the rest of your day. And that togetherness, it can be a lot. I
It's
was telling somebody the other day, I was like, we don't take naps in the car. And then they started laughing at me. I'm like, I'm serious. They were like, why not? I said, because then when they get home, they wake up.
right.
So you don't let. I said, kids don't nap in the car. You take the nap when we get to the house, and then I can use that downtime to decompress.
Right.
If
Right.
I
We're gonna
need a
have a
power nap,
win-win situation. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you have to be inventive as
You
a
do.
parent
You
about
do.
how you can get your downtime in.
That's right.
But please believe there's something in there that you can use to create that downtime moment for yourself.
And there it is. And you know what? I'm so glad that you said that, Jamie, because the way that the brain is hardwired, I'm like so geeked out on neuroscience. I want to make sure my computer was plugged up, but the way that the brain works is that we're hardwired because of the evolutionary process, like to make sure that we are safe, and we're always looking for danger. So we're always looking for the negative aspects of life. Why? Because we want to be safe, right? So it was important for us years and years ago, whenever we were, because we are really tribal people, we needed to be able to protect ourselves. So we needed to be looking for negative things or dangerous things or threats. But in our day-to-day life, we really don't need that aspect of our brain, but our brain still works that way. So what I'm saying is, usually what happens is when we're thinking about, and I might be jumping ahead, but when we're thinking about setting goals, our brain immediately goes to the negative and why we can't do it,
Mhm.
versus, let me back up, how can I make this work? How can this work for me? Versus, well, this won't work because.
I like that. I like
just
that.
restating just restating that thought can help the brain to come up with what we want it to come up with, as far as solutions for, creating additional self-care time. And the other thing is, perfectly said, we don't have to get up an hour earlier. As a matter of fact, don't get up an hour earlier. Why? Because you're not going to be able to maintain it. Anybody who's trying to exercise 7 days a week for a whole hour, okay, I'm okay. I'm gonna see
Right.
you in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna see how hard you're going. And
I really,
I'm not trying to, like sow a bad seed for you. But what I'm
but be
saying is, be
realistic.
realistic about
Mm-hmm.
what you can
Mm-hmm.
maintain,
Mm-hmm.
and then add on, so that you don't unintentionally overwhelm yourself, and then, look up and say, okay, I don't feel motivated to do any of this.
Forget it all.
Right, forget it
and,
all.
and
Not
you said it
just
perfectly.
step. No, I'm gonna go down 3 days. No, I'm not doing nothing.
I'm doing nothing. The
I'm not
next
doing
thing you know,
nothing.
you just laying in the bed. Oh, I
Yeah,
took the day off
I thought
today.
you. No, I'm done.
And that's the thing, like that matters so much. The goal is to do things that help you become more effective, not
Right.
things that can send you into overkill.
That is
So
right.
that's so important. That was
Mm-hmm.
really good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is, I guess we'll go ahead and skip when it comes to this one.
Okay.
What is a common mistake you feel people make when setting their goals, and how do you feel that we can correct it? And I kind of wanted to talk to that before we get more into goal setting,
Okay.
because I think the first thing that we do is we start planning mentally, and a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
if we can't see the plan manifest, then we psych ourselves out. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the problems you see that people
So
encounter?
two top things, and I know I have one more, but the two top things. The first one would be what we just mentioned, which is going too hard too fast. We'll just say that. So instead of really assessing what your ability is, like what would be sustainable, you just say, I need to lose the weight, so I'm going to work out for an hour every day. I'm going to start just like that, and I'm going to maintain it for a whole year. I'm not even going to take breaks for the holidays. I'm not going to take breaks on the weekends. And I'm going to eat no sugar and no meat. Too hard, too fast.
Yeah. I
Let's
tried it.
start. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Crash. Crash and burn.
Let's start somewhere. You know what I mean? Let's start with 15 minutes a day.
Mhm.
15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening of working out. Let's start with, I don't know, if you want to decrease sugar, right? So if I was drinking 3 sugary drinks per day, maybe 3 sodas, maybe tea with sugar, maybe coffee with sugar, whatever it is, then I'm going to start to decrease from 3 sugary drinks a day to 2 for the first week. So going too hard too fast is a mistake. And then the second mistake that I feel like people make is that we don't actually write down what it is that our goals are. We're not writing down what it is that we want to obtain and going back and looking at it and saying, oh, this is why I got here, or this is why I didn't.
It's so funny because what you I thought about teacher mode instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Making your goals measurable, right? We
Mm-hmm.
always talk about that in
Mm-hmm.
education. And so we write them on that piece of paper, on that chart, and write down where we are at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of the year and where we would like to be at the end of the year, and you
There it
come back
is.
and assess it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have something to assess, then we fall off track with the goal.
There it is.
Making it visual is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes we don't. We just jump up and say, I remember when we were in school, we used to have to write those New Year's resolutions essays. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I think that the resolution concept has evolved to the vision board.
Yeah.
But when I think back on it, I'm like, that's one of those things that you actually grow up and find yourself using. Maybe not in the same way, but the concept makes sense now because now
Yeah.
we have what the vision board. Um, and I would like to say on the flip side that when we make our vision boards, don't make them too complex. It kind of goes back to what you said a minute ago. We're
Yeah.
going too hard too fast. I've seen people make a vision board and then you have like 95 goals on it. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Right.
you only have one year.
Right. 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 And here's the other thing about people. I read something. I should jot down where I find this stuff because it really is good stuff. And there are authors that are attached to these. But you know, the human brain tends to overestimate what we can get done in 1 year. So essentially, usually what we think we can get done in 1 year, we could get done in 3 years. So what I would like to encourage, or what I usually encourage clients to do is, if you're making a vision board, don't throw your vision board away just because everything didn't come to
Yeah.
pass in 12 months. Keep it. That doesn't mean that you don't make another one if you want to add to that. But most certainly you can use a vision board for 2 years if you feel like you're still working towards those goals on that vision board. And in addition to the vision board, have the written goals to accompany the vision board so that you can have action steps to accompany the goals that you have set. That holding yourself accountable in 2 different ways.
Mhm. I tell people all the time, if your vision board doesn't have words on it, it's just a collage, baby. So you have to put words on it. And I truly believe
Look
that.
here,
So you have to have words on there.
yeah, it's
To
like
help you.
the two work together in my mind. I
Yeah.
don't feel like there is only one way to skin a cat, but I will say let's try to figure out the how we can fine tune this method to make sure that we're getting whatever it is that we are desiring as far as our dreams. And
Absolutely.
so, the vision board, um, if I may, like, visualization is used in so many different facets of life. So visualization is used in athletics for, Olympic athletes, for NBA players. I'm thinking about Michael Phelps and how he was training so intensely, and he was taught to visualize himself winning even if the wind had not happened yet. And one day he actually, that happened to him, like his goggles fogged up and he could not see anything, but he could envision himself winning and getting to the end of that pool. And he did win that meet. And so, or heat, it is in swimming. But anyway, visualization is also used in the mental health world, because if we can visualize ourselves in a different space or time, that is calmer than where we actually are, our body will respond to those thoughts, and we will have the physiological sort of response that we would want to have, which is what, a decreased heart rate and slower breathing and all those things. Visualization is important. That's why I'm saying all this. But the
Absolutely.
two together, the visualization and the actual written down goals, I feel like that's the perfect recipe for success.
You know, and this is, it goes back to the fact that when we talk about education, right, we talk about the different styles of learning,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that visual always tends to be the most popular way that people learn. And
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, because when you show a person, then they can find their own personal
Yeah.
relatability, right? Which is why, if we think about even in the media and social media world, this is why people love the way that social media works, because it connects what you think with what you see. And it gives you
Right.
the
Exactly.
ability, I think, to also, as you said before, see yourself in that same position as that other person. I think
Mm-hmm.
that there are definitely benefits to other styles of learning, but I believe that what you see first is the way that we get people to buy into what you hear and what you read.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, because I believe that that's how we shape our motivation for life. Even if we think
Yeah.
about how we came up as children, right? And having to actually see these images that represented what we wanted to become. And once we can envision ourselves doing the same thing, then we were able to listen more in order to learn and read more and find interest in doing so.
Yeah.
So I think that what you talked about, like how that concept applies to life, so many times one of the biggest problems is that people really don't see how things fit into their lives. But teaching people step by step how every single thing that we do does fit into how we look at life in its total realm is very important. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's why what you shared just a moment ago is important on so many different levels. And whether
Yeah.
we're talking to school age children or adults who are saying that they are quote unquote manifesting things that they
Yeah.
want to happen this year, or praying for things to
Yeah.
happen this year, or
Mm-hmm.
wanting to make things happen this year. And then that when you say that you claim it, it's because you have already started to see yourself in that position. So
Right.
I have a question
Right.
here.
Okay.
What advice do you have to people who tend to waver back and forth because they see it, but they have those up and down moments? Like, how do we condition not to let those wavering moments. And I could personally talk about how for years that was an up and downhill battle for me. Those long periods, you might be good that first or second knockdown, but that third one, you're looking like, oh, wait a minute, this is looking like a mess.
Yeah.
So we have the vision board, we have the concepts, we need to start to make steps in that direction. What is your I guess your um what motivational thing can you say to people who find themselves going through that up and down roller coaster, especially during times right now, like now, where they feel like they don't have all of the same things available to them?
Woo. Okay. So that's a big one. That's a big one, because we all, first of all, I want to say, let's just get it out of the way. We will, it's not if we will waver. And I think if we can understand that as humans, we really use our feelings as a guidance system. Like, we use our emotions as a guidance system. And whenever we feel like things are not going well, then we tend to follow what we're feeling, and then we stop. Ooh. But what I would like to encourage people to do is to allow yourself to feel how you're feeling, because we need to listen to our emotions. Give yourself time and space, and then restart. It does not mean that we're not listening to our emotions, that we're not giving ourselves time and space for our emotions, but we are not allowing our emotions to take the wheel and take us completely off course. Because here's the thing about goals that I love is that goals, we don't have to change the actual goal. We can change the date.
Exactly.
We
Absolutely.
can, you know what I mean? We can change the date.
Absolutely.
I don't think we give ourselves permission to do the things that we need to do so that we can actually achieve or arrive at the goal. It's like it didn't happen when I said it was going to happen, so it's over with. No, no. I need a quick minute to assess. I'm going to, fall back, have some time for self-care, clearing the mind, whatever it is that you do so that you can reset and then look back at those goals and say, okay, realistically, this might take a little bit longer.
It's
So
so funny. Oh, go ahead.
I
I'm
can
sorry.
reset. I can, no, it's okay. This needs to be, the time frame needs to be reset, not the actual goal. And usually that's the case.
And it's so funny that you say that because that's actually one of the key points that I always talk about with clients when we talk about writing books. And I say it's okay to have to push the deadline back. What you don't
Hmm.
want to do is go to a place where you are not actively pursuing
There it
that goal
is.
at all. Because
Hmm.
things happen, life happens.
Hmm.
Sometimes you just did not set the goal realistically for yourself.
Right.
Sometimes life changes and you have to adjust accordingly.
There it
But
is.
you still, if you say that that's what you would like to do, I think the biggest thing is that you really have to see the commitment to yourself to make it happen as the first thing and the most important thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I've gotten to the place where I tell myself, and you already know this, like I don't have any problems telling people, like as a real writer, baby,
Hmm.
you have total meltdowns, and you notice I have messed up whole scripts, had to go
Come
back and
on.
rewrite a chapter, not have the speech finished when I thought it was going to be finished, like and have had total meltdowns about it because I'm like, I'm so tired. I'm so sick of this. I got
And
another
look at you
section
now.
of it.
Look at you.
And,
Look at
because the rule has always been
you. Hmm.
you can cry, you can get
Yeah.
upset, but you can take the rest of the day off.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
come on, sis, get out of the bed.
There you
It's
go.
time to get down to
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
It's time
Yeah.
if something changed and you don't have the same resources you had at first,
Hmm.
what can you do now? I think that we are so blessed now.
Hmm.
Like I always think about our ancestors and
Right.
how I'm like, if I'm sorry, if Harriet Tubman could go back and forth multiple times to get other people to free slaves,
Come on.
and she didn't even have TikTok to put a message out or Instagram to let you know that she
Right.
was
Right.
putting
Right.
up.
Right. Right.
She
Right.
wasn't Snapchatting people in private
No, they was
messages.
singing songs. They was putting markers in the woods.
She was going straight through the woods.
Like,
She
what's
didn't
good?
even have a
It's going to
navigation
the right
system.
place.
Exactly. She had nothing. You know, if these really amazing ancestors can do the things that they did and they didn't have the things that we do now, if Nikki Giovanni could self-publish her first
Mm-hmm.
book without even having the online resources, honey, she had to write this and type this and send it here,
Mm-hmm.
send it there. No, not even having computers. Then there's absolutely no reason that with all the resources we have today, all of the access we have today, that we cannot remain committed to our goals and dreams because
Yeah.
we are in a different era where we are very blessed to have a lot more resources at our fingertips, a lot
Yeah.
more access to things, a lot more abilities to get the word out there and make things happen. And I always, when I get down, when I really start thinking, dang, like this didn't turn out the way I thought it would, or I messed up on this when I could have done that differently. I have to remind myself that my folks went through a whole lot more before me,
Right.
and I'm really fortunate to have the resources that I do. So what can I do with what I have?
Right. 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 And that brings up a really good point that I was thinking about while you were talking. It is that, like, really giving ourselves time to assess. Like, whenever we're taking our moment, whenever we're having a down moment, because we will have them. I like to be honest about that and not sell people wolf tickets like, oh, it should be,
It'll be all
you know,
roses and
all
flowers.
roses. That's right. No,
Yes, it's gonna be perfect.
yeah, sometimes things get pretty rough, and the reason that things get rough, let's be honest, is because if you're really pushing for a dream, like a real dream, you are seeing yourself outside of who you are. You're
Mhm.
actually seeing someone else that you don't know yet. And so it is
That's a good
important
one.
that we
That's a good one.
also work on our mindset and
That's a
our
good one.
inner narrative, which is just how are we talking to ourselves? So are these things that we're
That's a
telling
good one.
ourselves in our low moments true?
That's a
Or
good
are
one.
they just patterns of thought? And that's a whole different topic for a different day. But whenever we're talking about goals, and if we want to attain our goals, we have to get kind of wild and crazy about how we see ourselves, and
Yeah.
be courageous enough to say, no, I have not been the type of person to do this before, but I see this for myself.
I see it
And
for
you said
myself.
something really good. How did I get through something hard before?
Yeah, I like that.
What was my
Like
last
that.
struggle that I was able to overcome? Because all of us have a
Mhm.
million, two or
Mhm.
three. Okay.
Mhm.
How did we
Absolutely.
get through our last struggle? What were the things
You
that
have
we
to
were
feel
able to
like,
do to get through that last struggle? And how did we end up where we are now? Because ultimately we're still here.
how did I get through my last one?
Yeah.
And how did I get where I am now?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, like, and we can lose sight of that, especially if we get in this place where things seem to be looking up. Sometimes we can
Right.
forget that these some of these places are familiar to us. Some of
Hmm.
these experiences have happened before, and sometimes this experience is not as bad as the one I had before. So if I
Right.
handled that experience with no problem and I survived, I can handle this one as well.
Is.
Um, and I think right now, I think more than ever right now, that's something we have to remember because I think things are very unpredictable right now. Our jobs
Hmm.
are unpredictable, health is
Hmm.
unpredictable. Even the grocery store at this point is unpredictable, just the way things have been.
Yeah.
But I think that absolutely we have to try to remember where we've come from and where we intend to go.
Right.
And be committed. I think we have to be, but I also think that that's why the next question I'm going to talk about is so important, which is going to be geared more to our adults, um,
Okay.
which is about the whole parenting aspect. I
Oh.
shared before that you are a mom of three, bonus son
Hmm.
as well, wife.
Hmm.
Um, of course, I have a son.
Hmm.
Um, and I have a companion. So
Hmm.
spending time with our companions, balancing our home life, all of these things are extremely important. But so is our goal setting dream. So are our passions. So my question is, what are some keys for parents who are trying to balance family life and their personal goals at the same time?
Mm. Woo, all these heavy questions. Okay, so um, all right, English teacher, I'm gonna say something that might be completely wrong, but this is something that I share with clients, so you could correct me.
It's
But
spiritually right, so that's all that
okay, all right, okay. So
matters.
this is what I share a lot because, needless to say, there are lots of people who are having this same struggle with giving themselves permission to do the things that they want to and need to do to be able to get to the goal that they've set for themselves. And so it really becomes that word selfish. So if we grew up in the church, if we grew up in the Black community, then we were we were raised and conditioned to be humble and to be at times meek and to think of Black women specifically to put others before you, to have a sacrificial type of mindset or order type of mindset.
Yes.
And all of these sort of thought patterns actually keep us stuck versus push us forward to the goal that we have set for ourselves. And
Hmm.
so, what am I saying? That word selfish, I feel like we've been conditioned to believe that selfish means I am only thinking about myself and not thinking about everyone else. But I would like to challenge people to view the word selfish as I am caring, the care of self, right? It is okay. If you need to view it in that way, it is okay to care for yourself. Because if you are not caring for yourself, you will not be able to pour out of an empty cup, like we talked about
Absolutely.
earlier. So
Absolutely.
it becomes, to answer your question, we have to, as parents, as companions, partners, spouses, we have to take care of ourselves first in order for our family to get the best of us, for our
Absolutely.
colleagues to get the best of us, for our work to be the best part of us, the outcomes that we want them to be. So, you know, it really does become, how do I give myself permission? What does that look like? Do I have to get up early? And even if my kids wake up early, I have to say, this is mommy's time.
Hmm.
Do I have to sometimes say to my partner, okay, I really am committed to this, so I'm gonna have to take this 30 minutes to myself? Does it mean with friends and girlfriends, you have to set a boundary? And that is hard because we feel like we're going against everything that we have been raised to be.
Hmm.
So I truly believe that that is the hardest, one of the hardest things with goal setting is coming out of the core beliefs that we have acquired over the years. And that really, before this generation, have been staples
Right.
for
Right.
our ancestors, you know,
It was believed that a good woman has to basically work herself to death
to death.
on behalf of the family, and
Yeah,
then she ends up with nothing left in
yeah,
the end.
yeah,
Absolutely, it
yeah.
was believed that she's taking care of all the children in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
She is taking care of everybody who I mean, somebody calls, she's jumping up to put the cake
Mhm.
on.
Mhm.
And you can attest, I lived with that complex for a long time, a very, very long time, until literally life stopped me in my tracks.
Mhm.
And I believe that that's in the end really what happened.
Yeah,
Life had to put a stop on me,
yeah.
because I was not going to fulfill my purpose if I
There
did not.
is, yeah. It's
And I
unfair.
think we have to have a real conversation about that. Is that there are a lot of women out there who have, if you have the gift of influencing others, of
Mhm.
caring for others, but you find that you're always only using that gift for other people and you are not able to see anything
Mm.
reciprocated, you need to
Mhm.
reevaluate how you're
Yeah.
using that gift.
Mhm.
Because I truly believe that when you are truly using the gift the way that you're supposed to be, there's always going to be reciprocity. You're going to be
Oh, yeah.
refilled as you are putting that gift out to others.
Mhm.
And if you are in and I will say this and I stand by it, there are a lot of women out there, especially who stay in jobs and positions because you feel that whatever your role is in your house, it helps you to fulfill that so that everybody else is comfortable. And you need to reevaluate whether you are the one who's comfortable. Are you always fussing? Are you always frustrated? Are you
Mhm.
always aggravated? Is your
Right,
companion always getting the bad part of you?
right.
I don't care what anybody says, a peaceful home is the best gift that your family can give. And on
Yeah.
the front side of it, it may seem
Mhm.
to you like being able to buy those video games or everything is everything. But when you start to experience what it feels like when your family feels at peace because you're at peace, you'll
There
realize
is
that the
nothing
game is
like it.
completely
There is
different.
nothing like it. And so I have to share like my own personal story that, and of course, that whenever the pandemic hit, well, let me say this about vision boards. I have mine, I have my old one right here, but a part of one of my previous vision board, not this one, but my previous vision board for 2020 and 2021 was work life balance. Because here's the other thing about setting goals. You set goals and then you get exactly what you want and then you realize, "Oh my God, I am working like crazy still," which happened with me. I was very blessed to be able to start my own business and then found that I was so consumed with the nature of helping the business to run that realistically there were going to have to be some changes, there, because Black women often think that you are superwoman, and in reality we are human. We need time to care for ourselves and our children. But anyway, I ended up at the beginning of the pandemic making the decision that no, yeah, it was when everything shut down. And when things were going to open back up in May 2020, I told my husband that I was like, no, I don't think I'm going back to the office. And this was not coming out of nowhere. Whenever you're listening to your body, and your body, when you think about going to a place and your body is like physiologically responding, like your neurons are firing, which basically means your heart is racing, you are sweating, feel like you're about to all these different things. That means that you might need to shift some things in your life. And I know that that's easier said than done for some people, but I was actually in the place where it was like completely God's timing, because we went to a virtual healthcare setting. And so I was like, okay, God, what do I need to do to make sure that this carries forward with me so that I can manage my practice completely virtually going forward, so that not only can this alleviate some of the consumption, me being consumed by my work, but also first and foremost, so that I could be with my family, because that is my first priority, you know. And I think we are, to your point, I think we're scared to change things up a lot of times. Well, I gotta work. Okay. But again, how is it that you're working?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you have to drop your job today, but if you know that there should be a better, or could be a better setup for yourself and your family, how can you take steps to say, I'm going back to school,
Mm-hmm.
period?
Mm-hmm.
I need to have a job where I am working during the day and I'm at home at night. Maybe that doesn't happen right now. Maybe you're setting your goals and in 2 years you're making a shift. But if we nothing will change unless we change,
You begin to pray.
right? We we
Exactly.
have we have to take the action steps. So, I just thought I would share that because I really felt that in my heart, because it's important that we are actively taking steps towards what it is that we feel. Everybody has that intuition, that little voice, whatever you want to call it, God's voice, that still whisper, that's saying to us, nudging us to shift.
Yep.
And it really becomes our responsibility to take steps to get to that point that we desire.
And there are two things I'm going to share about it. Number one, you know that I adamantly have always believed, and we talk about this all the time. Like, I used to always say to myself, like, I believe that we should be at home more often. And it wasn't about solely about our kids, but I felt like as a Black woman, I've worked hard my whole life. And I'm like, I just don't believe that I should have to
I
work
feel the
hard like that
same.
for the rest of my life. I want to say that. And like people thought I was crazy. I'm like, I was looking at Martha Stewart straight up, and I'm like, you can tell me, you can say what you want to say. And we're about to talk about Black women. Like, I'm like, you cannot make me convince me that Martha Stewart can cook from her kitchen. Stephen King can write from his house,
Come on.
and I cannot do the same.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
has to be something to it that
Yeah.
makes this work. There
And
has
that's
to be
true.
something to it because we, as Black women, should not have to continue to grind our wheels so
Yeah.
much where we
Yeah.
are always exhausted,
Right.
always worn
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
always overwhelmed, always on
Hmm.
demand. We should be able to enjoy life differently as well. And I
Yeah.
think that what you said just now is so important when you said start putting the steps in motion, because
Hmm.
the truth is you never know when it's going to actually happen. I
Yeah.
remember in my book I had the perfect plan. I had a sketched out calendar date. I was like, okay, and then I had my business because I was like, okay, number one, I feel God told me to get things shaped up because I need to have my ducks in a row and have
Right.
my business together. But I definitely said, okay, well, I'm still going to be in the classroom and I'll be working on my books and I'll do this and I'll do that. And things ended up changing for me much sooner than I expected them
Mm-hmm.
to change. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up in a predicament where I had to think fast about how
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be able to ensure that ends were met.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons you actually don't know when it's going to happen. But
Yeah.
number two, you also have to commit yourself not to just talk about it, but to be about it. Because the only person that suffers when you don't turn your words into action is you.
That's right. That's so
There's a
true.
freedom that awaits us on the other side of executing those goals. And
Yeah.
when we don't make them happen, our kids don't suffer. Our companion is not suffering. We are the only people who
Right.
suffer when we don't actually make those things happen because
Yeah.
we're stuck in the land of shoulda, coulda, woulda. We hit 45, we hit 50, we hit 65, and we're still talking about, well,
You know
I
what?
was going to, or I'm going to. And the next thing you know, they're going ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and we
Right.
just have
And
a
there it
manuscript
is.
or a plan for what we never did.
So, and that's true. But you know what? This is not going to contradict your point, but I think two things that you said, maybe just one. The most important one, I'll just say the one, is this is something that I'm thinking about over and over again. We don't want to waste time, but in the same breath, I want to say that if you have not started and you are a certain age, don't let that be something that
No,
stops
no,
you from starting.
no.
It's just the
Exactly.
fact that
No.
we don't want to harbor feelings of resentment and regret. So if
Don't
you
keep
can get,
pushing it.
if the sooner
Yes.
you get started, the better.
Let's
Okay,
do it.
but
Let's
if
do it.
you don't get started whenever you're 40, or if you didn't get started whenever you were 40 and now you're 50 or you're 60, still get
Let's do
started.
it.
Do it. Do it. It doesn't matter what age. It doesn't matter what physical limitation. That's the other thing. Don't let age, physical limitations, your environment. These are the types of stories that we tell ourselves that keeps us from getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not true. They are barriers. They may be
Mm-hmm.
barriers, but they're not ultimate, like uh they are not things that will ultimately keep you from getting where you need to go. And I really would like to encourage people to lean into that as much as possible, because whenever we continuously tell ourselves these stories about, well, I can't, cuz, well, I got this, well, and I empathize. However, there's something that's waiting for you. If you have a desire and a dream, it's out there for you.
What can you do?
Yeah, what can you do,
What
and
can
how?
I do is
Yeah, what
always
can
the
I do?
question.
Right.
What can I do? Not
Hmm.
what can I not do? What can I
That's right.
do? Because
Yeah,
there's
what can
always
I do?
something you can do.
Hmm.
Absolutely. There's always
Absolutely.
something you can do. And it's not, I think that a lot of that comes in as well with the fear we tend to deal with. Because when
Hmm.
you talked about the age concept as well, I tell people all the time, like, I'm almost 40 and my dreams are fresh on me. I don't My goals and
Mm.
ambitions, they're fresh in my spirit. I'm out here like I'm 23.
Right, right. It's
I'm
just
ready
so
for the
popping.
next thing. I
Yeah,
think the biggest key is, as well as you said before, let's put those wheels in motion. Let's
yeah.
make it happen. Let's do that thing. Let's
Hmm.
go ahead and get started on it. And not worry about anything. That whatever we perceive to be a barrier is not. And I'll say this, like, I've never been more clear on this than I am now. That when you start putting those wheels in motion, the things you need fall into place.
Jamie. Oh my God.
Man, they just
It,
it's like
it
manna. Things just
is
start happening for
amazing.
you.
It is so amazing. You may not know how,
Yeah,
but if you start, it's like, oh, okay.
let's
It
do it.
things seem to be
Let's
coming
do it.
together.
Yeah, they do.
If you start moving, and then if you have that faith in yourself as well, like
Hmm.
really having that faith. I'm talented. I know that I can cook. I know that I can, I am business savvy. I do have, the ability to connect with people, or I have a drive or
I can
ambition
do
that's
this.
always been deep down
Absolutely.
in me. Believe
Absolutely.
in that.
Absolutely.
Believe in that
Absolutely.
first, even if you haven't actually, um, you know, ventured into this particular realm just as of yet. Believe in those small, feelings or intuitions or pushes that you've had for so many years. That's important as well.
And I think that one of the problems we run into when we talk about goal setting as well, and then we talk about the family component,
Hmm.
is that a lot of times we also look at our family life as being a barrier when it can actually be one of the things that gives us both discipline and direction for the things that we
That
do.
is so true.
And I just remember becoming a parent and then becoming a single mom. And initially I was like, oh my God, how am I supposed to navigate this child whenever my secondary career is one that involves working in adult spaces?
Hmm.
And then before long, my little person was interested in as well.
Right.
And then so that made me start looking at things differently, children's books, avenues where he can be part of the cooking experience and all these things. And then in some components, if it demands that you have that sense of separation, those things tend to work out. I really learned that there were people out there who were a lot more supportive than I thought initially,
Mm.
especially because they believed in what I was doing because I believed in what I was doing.
Hmm.
And so I think that
Oh, that's
sometimes
so
the other part of
good.
it is, especially when we're parents, we look at life and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But in addition to scheduling, we really have to have the ability to speak up.
Hmm.
We have to have the ability to speak up, and we have to have the ability to still try to devise that plan. And a lot of times things just work out. But if
Hmm.
we keep putting everything else in front of us and putting our dreams and goals at the back of the line, we will never see a reason to make things happen. And we
Yeah.
will never be as fulfilled, as
Right.
happy, as satisfied as we deserve to be. And
Hmm.
we'll be talking about breaking chains and breaking barriers. And we won't be breaking anything but our own heart and ourselves
Right.
now.
That's so true. That's true.
And so we have to, I think, in a sense, reconsider how we're looking at things and look at how we can move forward with managing our family and engaging our family in the things that move us forward. And despite what we tend to think, like your family members are quite often involved in whatever that you are involved in. They're supportive
Hmm.
of whatever you want to do. Your children have seen you do yoga and have wanted to participate in yoga. Your
Yep.
kids have seen you talk about therapeutic resources and wellness,
Hmm.
and they've wanted to engage in conversations with you as a
Right.
result. So all of these things are important to us because we get so lost in everything else and everybody else that really people begin to think that that's all that there
Um,
is that exists of us, and we are not doing our families justice. We're not doing ourselves justice when we don't allow people to know those parts of us that exist as well. And
so
we think about mother-daughter relationships, friend. That's so very vital that we do that now. And
yeah.
we can say this very comfortably. You and I had those moms that felt like we were in front of them on everything that
Right.
they did in life. And as
Right.
we become grown women, we've learned a lot more things about them now.
Yeah.
And we love that. But now,
Hmm.
as parents, we have the ability to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to ensure that you all also know about mom in this present moment.
Right.
How
Right.
mom having
Right.
some things as well that need to be
Hmm.
talked about and shown and explored and protected as well, so that we can learn and grow together. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's a wonderful point. That's a really, really wonderful point because we truly are products of our environment. And so especially I think in early adulthood, in our teenage years and early adulthood, we are going to show up in the way that we were raised. And so this is a recent revolution for me. I have been queen of getting everything done and not asking for help, and maybe needing it. Not maybe needing it, like really, really, really needing it. And then I say another thing, and then being mad because didn't nobody help me, but you didn't ask. Girl, how you gonna be mad? You ain't even asked, but you mad. Girl, you mad. Okay. But Oh, so what I was saying was it's important to know that when you realize that you're showing up in the way that, we are products of our environment, and that's fine, because I'm happy that I was raised the way that I was raised, because it
Yes,
gave me an incredible work ethic. You might be
yes,
me in some stuff, but you're not going to be me in this work ethic. You know what I'm saying? Like
at
I'm gonna,
all.
hands down. Look,
And
I'm
we
killing
know
it. I
that.
know I am. You're not gonna beat me. But
No,
I
no,
mean, and I owe that to Kayla Sue
baby, nobody works like
and
Miss
and,
Taylor
and,
Sue.
and the
I know
V
you exactly.
Videla brand. You understand what I'm saying? So, and I will not ever
Absolutely.
stutter about that, because that's important. But I think when you feel yourself lacking, especially, let me tell you what happened, because whenever we move off, you realize that you really can't do it all. So you're gonna have to
Mm-hmm,
do something different if you're gonna
mm-hmm.
be like if you're going to be in a different capacity. And so, especially for moms who are working and you do not have the support of family, right? It
Mm-hmm.
is even further, you know, more important for you to be able to set up these
Definitely,
boundaries so that you can
definitely,
have that time to sow in to yourself. That is,
definitely.
is so important, because if not, you will burn out. It's
Mm-hmm,
not if, you will.
mm-hmm.
It's just when. It's when.
And I think that's the thing. Like when we talk about our moms, like we definitely now try to ensure that we let them know, like we love y'all. We want you to know you don't have to do this
Right.
anymore. But we came up in the era where the single mom did it all,
Hmm.
did not ask for help. You would have to go to them and say, "Let me help you."
Right.
But that was once again the conditioning of black women to believe
Right.
that you had to carry it all on your own.
Hmm.
And we don't think anything less about mothers for doing that. We
No.
admire them even more
No.
because we absolutely love them. But
Yeah.
what we also have realized is that as we talk to them more now, we're like, man, I'm still learning about you. I'm
Right.
still learning about you.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think that that just shapes for us like how we would like to ensure that maybe we can start our kids with that learning journey now and share
Hmm.
some things with them now because we realize how talented our moms are, how
Yeah.
gifted they are, the parts of feminism that exist about them,
Hmm.
and get to engage in them just much differently. And I think that that is part of, and you know that this was part of the whole concept of trends, but that bonding concept between especially black mothers and daughters.
Hmm.
And so when we talk about goal setting, I think that for Black women in particular, this is why these conversations are so important. It's great for us to make vision boards, but we really need to understand why it's so important for Black women that we make sure we maintain a sense of personal identity in
Hmm.
trying to manage everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. So that's a great segue. So I'm glad that you said that, because it reminded me of something that I wanted to share with everyone about goal setting and vision board planning and creation. When you're thinking about setting goals, making sure that you are breaking your goals up into different topics, right? So I like to think about family and relationship, career, personal life, and then if you want, like, that's the big three. If you want to add anything else, then that's bonus in my mind. And so whenever you're setting up your goals, thinking about I think about Martha Lou Roberts. I think about a timeline. I think about an outline, excuse me. So you're going to have your
Yes.
roll one, two, and three, and then you're going to have your action items are going to be A, B, C. All right. You cannot have a and not have the
A
B.
B. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And whenever we're thinking about action items, we're thinking about things that you can measure. So I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes every weekday,
Mhm.
and then make it time limited. So we're going to do that for, I don't know, 3 weeks. I'm going to start February 1, and I'm going to do that for at least 3 weeks, or you could say it's going to be ongoing. And look at your goals. So we make these goals or New Year's resolutions January 1, or in the month of January, and then we don't necessarily remain consistent or become consistent with these action items that are going to get us to the goal because we don't look back at them. So whenever we're creating our goals, putting the goals somewhere where you can see them, as well as the vision board to accompany the goals.
Mm-hmm.
Put it somewhere where you're going to see it. If it's in your office, put it in your office. If it's in your bedroom, put it in your bedroom. Take a picture of the vision board, take a picture of the goals. Guarantee you, when you take a picture of it and you make it your screensaver, that you're going to see it multiple times per day
Absolutely.
because we're always looking at
Absolutely.
our phones.
My son and I, our vision boards are right here behind the door in the office, because
I
we
love
come
it.
here every day,
Hmm.
and we get the chance to actually look at what he's put on his board and what I put on my board,
I love
and
it.
how we're working to move toward those things. And I think that that's another one of those things where we bring our kids into our zone, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to share because there may be mothers who say, "Oh, well, I really want to be able to make my vision board a personal, private thing." I started my
Mm,
vision board while Lee 3 was gone. So when I had some
mm,
private time, I worked on my vision board independently, organizing my ideas. Whenever I sat at the table with him, it was mostly about just putting my decorations on and engaging with
hmm.
him about what he put on his.
Absolutely.
So when we talked about a minute ago, balancing family life and knowing exactly how to ensure that you put your time in so that you can focus on your things.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just unique. It's just a unique perspective on how we organize things
There it
while
is.
ensuring that we protect the time for us.
Hmm.
And so what you said a moment ago is absolutely true about how we have to ensure that we are just making sure that we can see what we have for ourselves in sight,
Hmm.
and measuring those goals and measuring
Hmm.
where we are and checking on that board,
Yeah.
because if we get out of touch with what those things mean to us, then we lose sight of exactly what we the reason we set those goals in the first
Right. In
place.
the first place. Right.
And it becomes something we just do to say we did it, as opposed to having been a really meaningful tool for us,
Right.
um, a life
Yeah.
measuring tool, right? And
Hmm.
then this is the thing: we spend all of our time allowing our jobs and professions to measure us in what they deem to be success,
Come on.
and then we don't give ourselves the opportunity to set a measurement tool
Right.
in order to say not what's successful, but what is putting me on the path to
For
fulfillment,
me.
because that's what it comes
For
down to.
me. That's it. And so
Absolutely.
you took the words right out of my mouth because when we're talking about goal setting and creation of vision boards, because these are more than likely things that we have not tried to do before. This is a venture that we have never embarked upon before. It becomes really important that we are specific about how we're going to get there. Because if we on somebody's job, they're going to be evaluating us. You're going to have a 90-day probation. We're going to see if we want to keep you, if we don't. So it's important that we are assessing ourselves not with that overly critical eye, but with an eye
Absolutely.
of what of assessment, really. Like,
Absolutely.
okay, what kind of barriers do I have to getting here? How can I
Absolutely.
change this so that those action items become they become workable, right? So you're looking at them and you're like, okay, maybe that's not going to work for me in the morning. Maybe I need to shift this
Right.
to the evening, or maybe I need to
Absolutely.
do vice versa. Like, how can I make this work for me? And it's very challenging to get there unless we're constantly looking at our goals and our vision board so that we can be evaluating ourselves. It's a good thing to do some self evaluation. I don't know how we're supposed to improve if we don't evaluate ourselves because we
That's
are
very
not
true.
perfect.
That's very
We,
true.
we are evolutionary beings.
And
So,
surround yourself with people who help you as well to
yeah.
remain
Oh, yes.
balanced and
That's a
in
good
check.
one. Hmm.
um, and to love and value those people,
Yeah.
because I love my check team. Even if my feelings get hurt sometimes, and the older I get, the more I'm like,
Ooh,
you
child.
got this, sis, you got that, right? But definitely having a support system that allows you to grow and is very encouraging and supportive. And I've talked about this before, and I will reiterate this again. And especially in the most recent years, that I have been blessed that far beyond college years. I love my college friends. I love the people I've met since I've been here. But my childhood friends,
Mm,
that I'm still very close with, have been lifelong cheerleaders,
mm.
lifelong butt checkers, lifelong everything, but always saying, we believe in you and we reciprocate that energy for each other, cheering for each other the same way that we would cheer for ourselves. And I
Absolutely.
think that Black women need to also understand that there are women out there who are like that, and they do exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you can find that sisterhood, but the energy you put out is the energy that you will receive in.
Hmm.
So it starts with, because and I think this is important for us talking about visions and goals, because I don't care what people tell you, you can't achieve success without a team. You
No.
can't achieve success without support. And I've been
Yeah.
really blessed along this way, especially coming from a background where I lived in poverty growing up, to meet people along the way who have been a support system, all the way down to even registering for college, the first time
Hmm.
going to a university and being the first person in my household to go, and having my
Hmm.
cousin there who helped
Yeah.
with the paperwork, and then
Yeah.
coming to Monroe and having a homegirl who said, well, why don't you leave Baton Rouge and come out here and I'll help you get in this program, and you can stay here and we'll help you get your place.
Yeah.
Having a support system works, and it may not always be things that involve such a big transition. It could be
Hmm.
those smaller things, like showing up to you finally published a book. Maybe she's
Right.
working the sign-in table for you, or reading a test copy for you. You finally
Yeah.
started a business. Maybe she's the business guru who's giving you that advice. Any of those things. And I think it's very important that we talk about surrounding yourself with a good group of women as well,
Hmm.
who also support, love, and encourage you, and believe in the vision that you have for yourself. And thank you guys for the feedback. This is really good. So, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna read this one. This is from Ms. Carolyn. In the beginning, a vision board should set your goals just for a specific period. And should there be a short, okay, oh, should you have short, should there be short and very long range goals on the same board? So she's
Mm.
asking, should you just set goals for a specific period, and should you have short and long range goals? So I think you and I have a little bit different ways that we do it. So I'll let you answer first, and then I'll share
Okay.
how I do mine.
All right. So I think I talked about this in my mind. We talked about this earlier. There's not a right or wrong way to do a vision board. It's really not. I think what we were saying earlier was that the way that humans work is that we tend to overestimate how much we can get done in 1 year. So I think historically people will create a vision board for, say, 2022, and then if everything doesn't come to fruition, then we put it to the
I
side.
will, yeah,
What I would encourage is that if you are creating a vision board, it's okay to not be as time specific with that vision board. If everything did not come to pass in
right.
2022, you can keep that same vision board. And then I think the last part of the question was, should we have long-term and short-term goals on the same vision board? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say yes. I would say yes. Go ahead and put your long-term and short-term goals on your vision board. But again, to reiterate what we were talking about, having those goals written down so that you can also have the action steps connected to those goals so that you're more likely to obtain them. So I hope that answers the question. So yes, both short term and long term goals is my answer. But I know Jamie says she approaches it different.
So, and mine is very similar. What I
Hmm.
tend to do is I actually put 2 to 4 goals on each one. And if I have two, that means one short term, one long term, or I
Hmm.
might have 3 short term, one long term goal. And then I actually split mine into categories. So I have health, finances,
Okay.
professional, family life. Let me see what I had this year. I even had wisdom, which involved how I wanted
Mm.
to improve academically. I had vision, I had home improvement. So I split it into there, and then I have my 2 long term, and then excuse me, my 2 short term, and then 1 long term, or 2 long term goals. And I try not to put too many things on there because I get excited. So I might have a whole
Right.
plethora of goals I want to smash that year. But I
Yeah.
also try to be realistic with myself. And if I should happen to smash those goals, mark them off the list, then I'll actually go back and scribble something else on the bottom of it that I can
Yep.
work on before the year is
Yeah.
over. And
That's
I
a
think
good
we
point
can make
too.
adjustments like that, as needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point that you can always add to your vision board. And I also do that a lot, is that as you see that like, okay, I've gotten that. Or you're like, as your vision becomes clearer about how you want to see that, it becomes more crisp, add something to it. Right. So I know a couple of years ago when I did, maybe, it's been a while now, 3 years ago, whenever I was about to start private practice, I actually I wanted to secure the office. When I secured the office, I put a picture of the office, but I wasn't moved in yet. And then I put a visual of how I wanted to set up the office, if that makes sense. So it's like sometimes it is we think that a vision board is created at the beginning of the year and then it's
Mm-hmm.
just done.
Mm-hmm.
But if we
Mm-hmm.
really are constantly evolving,
We can be
don't
goal
limit yourself.
specific.
You know what I
I like
mean?
it.
Continue to add to it as you see, okay, I would like to have this as well because
I
that's
like it.
realistic for me.
I like that.
Hmm.
It's goal specific.
Right.
Um, so you know how we do, honey. We've been talking now.
I know.
Now
I was
it's
about to
10:40.
say, child, it's
Ah,
probably
so let me
12
get
a.m.
down.
at this point.
And you all, believe it or not, this is how our phone conversations go in the midst of like managing our children until our kids let us know that it's time for us to bring it to an end. So
Right. Yeah, you didn't talk to me today, Mama. What? I've been looking for you. I
I
don't
did
do that
be
with
for real, just
kids.
popping and
Don't
saying,
let them
"Hey,
fool you.
daddy," and I say, I guess I'll call you later. So
Hmm.
this, and that's been one of the benefits is being able to engage, and maybe we could talk about even just briefly the ongoing of conversations about goals. You and I talk about it. That's what that's our most common conversation
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
about what we've accomplished, what we're working on, what's next, and it's that sense of
Ooh.
accountability without
Oh.
saying accountability.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I have two things that I would like to add. I
Okay.
will try
Let's
not
hear
to
it.
be. I said at the beginning of this I was not gonna talk that much, and look where we are. But okay. So a couple of things about reflection, about being able to assess. We talked about assessment on this during this conversation today. Y'all, I started doing a letter to myself. And I encourage people to do it because it forces us to do an assessment of the year and to really like outline what you were able to accomplish. So we're doing this all through the year, but if you're really wanting to see like what all I have gotten done, what like this letter is meant to be kudos to you, right? So you're able to say, I sold X amount of books. I did the interview with blah blah blah. I X Y Z A B C D E F and G, giving yourself lots of praise, and you will be so surprised how much you actually have gotten done. That's the number one. Like really, you know, talking to yourself, forcing yourself into an objective sort of state of mind. What would somebody say to you? Say that to you. That's the thing. And then the second thing is that with our kids, for those of us who have children, we give them positive reinforcement or positive reinforcers. When we are attempting to create a new habit, it can be very important to put in place some sort of um, positive reinforcer or to put some sort of algorithm in place so that your brain is making a habit. So for me, it might be I'm going to do meditation, yoga, and then I'm going to have my coffee and I want my coffee. Okay. So the brain is like setting up, the brain is setting up an algorithm for that. Okay. And if we can remain consistent with that for 2 weeks and hopefully into the month mark, then our brain is going to be waking up and saying, okay, this is what we're about to do. Much like our kids say, I'm about to eat, I'm going to have 30 minutes of TV time, and I'm going to take a bath. They might be resistant, but they know, they come to understand that that is what's going to happen in the evening time if we have set that up for them. So doing that same kind of thing for ourselves. It does not have to be anything that you have to buy because a lot of people say, well, I'm going to go on a shopping spree. No, you can. That's wonderful. But let's do small stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to reward myself with coffee or with, little things that you have around the house that you would have done probably anyway, but you're just structuring it in a way that it's going to fall after the thing that you're attempting to create a habit with or become more consistent with.
I know that for me, one of the positive rewards I did this year for myself was creating my spa bathroom that I
Oh,
have been talking
I
about.
remember you doing that.
And you know how I am, especially
Mm,
when it comes to these coins. You know how I get.
mm, yeah.
And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna tuck and duck everything," like I usually, a lot of people may not understand this, but I'm the penny pincher. Alexis will verify. And so
Ooh,
this year I was like, you know what? I'm very thankful that I made a lot of personal growth. So I'm going to make the spa bathroom that I wanted. And the crazy part about that was I was so blessed that like people started like donating the things I needed for the
mm-hmm.
bathroom. My sister bought the
Oh yeah,
curtains
that's right.
and then Dwayne bought some of the stuff I needed. So I really didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to do much in the end to make it happen. But
Mm-hmm.
by creating that spa bathroom, like every single day, I'm able to enter this relaxation zone. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that and I think that what you're talking about right now is so important. Like I didn't realize how beneficial it would be to me emotionally to
Mm-hmm.
have this really, really nice, healthy, private space to relax and rejuvenate
Mm-hmm.
and just get my mind together. Honey, I
Mm-hmm.
bring my little iPad in there and put it on the stand and click on Netflix, honey, and
I was
watch a
about to say, yeah, there
documentary
you go.
or a romance story. It is a real, and I set it up on the little space. And
Create the
then when I come out,
ambiance.
yes, I mean,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize how healthy and meaningful will be to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been a great experience. And so when you talk about how we can treat ourselves and reward ourselves and things we can do, I know I think that we also have to get in the habit of understanding that every time we treat ourselves well, we also make space for us to be emotionally healthy, even
Yeah,
better, and for us to
that's
be
so
better
true.
for the people that matter to us. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you shared that because that's a real good one, friend. That's a
Mm,
super good one.
yeah,
Um, that we don't think about all of the time.
right.
So here is the last question I guess I'll bring forward.
Okay.
How are goals and manifesting important to our mental health? And I know we talked about that a little bit, but I would like for you to just give a solid, rounded answer for that one.
Okay. So, whenever we're thinking about manifesting and goals and how it's tied to our mental health, the two are so very important and are so intertwined. And the reason why is like one of the main symptoms whenever we think about a depressed mood, we think about very specific symptoms. Not all the time do these show up in the same way with everybody, but usually at least two or three are present in most persons who are experiencing depressed mood. We think about sleep disturbance, appetite disturbance, feeling, of course, low mood, not wanting to do the things that you usually would do. So, a decreased interest in pleasurable activities. And then, of course, some people have thoughts of self harm. And then we have difficulty with concentration and feelings of hopelessness. So, whenever we think about feelings of the big two for me, of course, outside of self harm, feelings of hopelessness and not wanting to do the things that you usually would do. So if we can reconnect to those things, if we can reconnect to something that gives us hope, ooh, that's big. If we can reconnect to something that we used to love to do, whether it be art, whether it be dance, whether it be music, writing, reading, movement of the body, exercise, we almost always feel a sense of purpose again, no matter how small. So that's how it's tied. Whenever we start to put into place, okay, I really need to exercise because when I exercise, I feel better. Or I really need to paint, or I really need to write because when I do that, I feel, like I said earlier, I feel on fire. I feel excited. I feel like I am connected to my purpose again. So all of
Absolutely.
these things, like when we stray away from what makes us who we are, that's when we that's whenever we start to feel
That's a
those
good one.
feelings of
That's a good one.
lost, and depressed and hopeless. And we don't even realize how, what the impact is of those small things, like, caring for ourselves and connecting to things that we love. We don't realize how impactful those things are until they're taken away from us, or we're not able
Yeah.
to engage in them as much.
I like what you said. We don't realize how impactful they are until we're not able to do them
Mm-hmm.
as much.
Yep.
Then we start to see the change in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the mission is this year for everybody to experience a higher level of success, and happiness and peace. And as we've started 2022, I've definitely had a bit of concern because I think that everybody was eager for a new year, um, with the hope that kicking off 2022 would mean we're getting a big change. But we've already seen that a lot of things that were going on in 2021 are going on in 2022. We've even had a lot of losses of people that are influential and that
Mm-hmm.
we find near and
Yeah.
dear. My hope is that people do not allow these experiences to put a damper on what our hopes and dreams are for this new year. Um, I will personally say that in the midst of all the chaos last year, at the end of the year, I found myself in one of the most amazing moments and experiences and some of the most profound blessings that I had experienced over the past few years. And I realized that in the midst of all the work that's going on around me, there's still really great things personally that
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling, experiencing, and that I can be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the message is today that we hope you will be able to find those things directly connected to you that are still valuable, still meaningful, and still help you to move forward in a positive way, despite the things that may be going on that we cannot control. And so before I close us out for the day, Alexis, is there anything that you wanted to say? Any advice you want to give us?
No, I think we have pretty much covered all of the things that I wanted to talk about during this discussion. I'm just always glad to be able to be a part
I'm glad to
of the
have
movement,
you.
and just
Yay.
if I could just say one final thing, it is whatever the mind of man can conceive, he can achieve or she can achieve. Okay. So if you
Absolutely.
can think it, most certainly it can come to pass.
Absolutely. And I think that we are both proof of that. Um,
Absolutely.
And so we stand here as people that are not just telling you, but that people that can attest to it. We
Hmm.
believe in it because we have experienced it and we believe it for you as well. And so I just want to tell everyone how much I appreciate you joining in. And I hope that you all will move into the 2022 year with us on the Black Intellectualism Movement, tuning in to more of these discussions. In 2 weeks, we will have Dr. Nikki Patterson, who will talk about homeschooling as well as the presence of Black history and Black culture across the curriculum. She's actually been on some boards with the state of Louisiana, and she'll talk about what her experience has been with trying to ensure that we are incorporating culture across the curriculum. So that's going to be a great conversation.
Hmm.
And you all know that Black History Month is on the way. So you know that I'm very excited about that. And we have some amazing things lined up for Black History Month. Last year, we left out with a bang. We had some amazing people. I had guests from Washington, D.C. I had the director of mental health for LSU. I had state social worker, the state social work
Hmm.
organization, the Black Social Workers President,
Hmm.
for a discussion, as well as the former president in for a discussion. We had some profound and amazing guests, and we plan to keep this moving forward. I've been really blessed that last week, as you guys know, we had a discussion on the cotton picking truth, and we had a former Fox News producer and former Radio One producer, who
Hmm.
is now an independent producer, and we also had a Grammy Award nominated music producer. So that was Tobias and Mr. Timothy Smith. And they were so gracious. They enjoyed the interview. I've been able to continue communicating with them. They've been really amazing. And so, as God continues to open the door for these conversations, I'm really, really eager about what we can continue to talk about to uplift not just Black people, but humanity. The goal of the Black intellectualism movement is to bring Black conversations to the forefront so that we can continue to share our gift of knowledge with the world. I do not feel that we have highlighted how much wisdom, knowledge, and empowerment Black people bring. And so the hope is that this channel was just a way to keep those meaningful conversations going, to continue to showcase the influence of people of color, and to continue to build our community in a positive way. I thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I pray that you are blessed this year. If you want to reach Alexis, she is on Facebook. She has a business page called Therapeutic Wellness Solutions. She has a personal page for Alexis Young. I don't know if she's accepting clients right now, but she is licensed in multiple states, and I've shown that information to you as well. And she is available for speaking opportunities if you want to connect with her. We hope that you have a blessed night, and thank you all so much for joining us. Take care.